Welcome to the Coach's Corner. Coach Clarence is an entrepreneur, financial expert, and passionate about helping people build and market their business. He has a creative flair for thinking outside the box and is always looking for the positive side of life. Now, here's Coach Clarence.
Of Coach's Corner, I have Jonathan Rivera, known as JR. He is the results leader. This guy's got quite the extensive resume, and as I always do on my show, I like to let the guests introduce themselves, kind of starting from where they began to where they are, and then my questions fall out of that. Jonathan, welcome to my show. Appreciate you coming on. Tell me a little bit about yourself, to how you became the results leader from your past.
Coach Clarence, thank you for having me on the show, and quit fibbing to your audience. I have no resume. Let's not tell stories. I'm unemployable, and I have been for the last 20 years, and I will remain that way for the rest of my life. But I'm fortunate, man. I get to live my mission every single day, and it breaks down like this: the right words from the right person at the right time can change your life. And by whatever stroke of luck, by divine intervention, I don't know what it was, but God felt that this was my mission. So he assigned me to getting the right words from the right people at the right time into people's ears. And so through conversations like this, through the work I do at the Podcast Factory, everything I'm doing is trying to bring men back to God's light with good, encouraging, positive messages.
See, I love that. Kind of talk about your role at the Podcast Factory and what you do over there.
As little as possible.
But that's the next question, because it's on my list. But no, so if someone comes to the Podcast Factory's website, what can they expect?
Well, I mean, what we do, we're a podcast agency, marketing, production, strategy. My thing is that I'm looking for people who are like me, who have a mission, who are doing good work, who are trying to improve the lives of their listeners, and they have a business already. Business is going good, and they want to add a podcast channel to the business. And that's what we specialize in. It is coach, consultant, executive coach, people in financial services. They use these podcasts to build trust, build credibility, build their brand. And we help them figure out, number one, who is the show for? Number two, what you want the show to do for you. And number three, how to get your listeners to do that. And that's what we specialize in.
Gotcha. One of the things that stands out when I was going through your information is why the customer is always wrong. Because traditionally in business, you're taught that the customer is always right. So why is the customer always wrong?
Yeah, it's a matter of the way that we think and the way that we're conditioned today. I mean, most people want lots of things. They want what's on that commercial. They want what that IG star has. They want what their neighbor has, right? People are full of wants, but if we start looking at what they need, it could be two totally different things. And so that's why I say the customer's always wrong, because they're chasing wants. But we got to figure out, if we're doing good work, if we're trying to help them, we got to figure out what they need and give them that. And so what they want might not be right, but it's up to us to diagnose and make sure that whatever service we're providing actually gives them what they need. And you might have to wrap it in a pretty wrapper of what they want. But at the end of the day, you want to deliver results. You got to know what people need. You got to ask questions. You got to dig in and really find out how you can help people.
I see. That makes sense. I was kind of thinking of something different, but I love that. And a lot of times customers, especially in my business, they come to me and they think they have a solution. And a lot of times after talking to them, I end up finding out that's not what you really want. But let me guide you to that, because I always think coaching is really just guiding people to the answers that are already inside them. You just got to help them get it out through whatever layers you got to dig through.
Absolutely.
So Talk to me about reputation, because you're a man of God and that's important to you. Is that a determination if you work with somebody?
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I'm fortunate in that we don't need the business. We're happy just the way we are, and we can be selective about the people we work with. And we want to work with people who are doing good things,
Mhm.
people who are bringing the light. And light for me is an acronym: leadership in good and hard times, bringing the light to the darkness out there. And there is a lot of darkness in today's world. So whether it's inspiration, whether it's how to, whether it's motivation, perspective, whatever it is, I want to make sure that the people that I am working with have a good reputation in where they have helped people, because that's actually how the podcast factory started. It wasn't me putting out my shingle saying I do podcasts. I mean, you see that every day now. Just go to Fiverr, right? But when I did it, it was because I had some people who had helped me through some tough times in my life, helped me get a new perspective, helped me build a better business, helped me feel more worthy. All these things these people helped me do. I said, wow, that worked for me. Can we make that work for more people? Can we connect you with more people? And so ever since the beginning, it has always been a platform to elevate not just our hosts, but really about elevating our guests and their life and their experience and helping them move forward.
Gotcha. That makes sense. You talk a lot about reputation, and that's probably intertwined with what you're talking about, a person's reputation, in our case, business owners. Are you getting results? Are people benefiting from your services? How do you figure that out when you're talking to somebody in the beginning? Because people a lot of times say whatever you want to hear just to get help or whatever they need. So how do you differentiate that? Do you do your own research on their podcast, or what do you do?
Listen, I dig in. I check in on people, and I've spoken to enough people at this point right now. When and I are speaking, I've got at least 1,500 interviews under my belt on podcasts. Not to mention sales calls on top of that. So all I do is talk and listen to people. And actually, I do a whole lot less talking and a whole lot more listening. That's my specialty, is to listen. And so I'll ask a question and let them go with it. And I can tell, man, I mean, I don't know if I'm tuned in or what, but if I smell BS, I'm not interested. And I
Yeah.
can tell, like, we know each other. Light attracts light. And you will know when you're around the right people. So then it's just a matter of, okay, we're both good people. Now, what's your mission? Can I help you with that mission? And that's what I look for. Is I'm looking for a partnership with these guys. And you can look at my roster. There's some people with hundreds and hundreds of shows doing podcasts for years and years and years with us. Why? Because we are looking to be a part of their team, a part of their future, a part of their mission. And I cannot get into it if I don't like it. It's like watching Shark Tank and the investors like, hey, listen, I love those sponges, but I'm really into clothing. I really can't get excited about that, right? But the other shark might be interested in it. So for me, there's certain people doing certain things that I just like, and when I find those people, I want to help them.
Yeah. Gotcha. That makes sense. You say something that I really love. Your network equals your net worth. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
I know what it means to me, but what does it mean to you in general?
it's so one of the things that people like to ask is, what advice would you give 20-year-old you? And the advice I would give 20-year-old me is twofold. Number one, STFU. You know what that means?
Yep. Shut the fuck up.
Shut up and listen, right? Do more listening, which is now my specialty. I love to listen. And the other thing is, in that shutting up and listening, also getting around the right people. I don't care how you grew up. I grew up straight D student, didn't make it out of high school, got in trouble a whole lot, had friends that I skipped a lot of class with. None of that matters. Whatever way you came up doesn't matter. What matters is what you do next. And so getting around the right people means abandoning all those anchors who are holding you back and finding new people to get around. And when you're first getting started, that might just be a library card and going and getting biographies. Might be listening to podcasts. like this one, which is one of the reasons why I got into podcasting. It might be going to an event or a mastermind, but just start where you can, start collecting better friends, and start surrounding yourself with better thinking. And every time you level up, you're going to have to level up your friends if they're not leveling up with you. And so, yeah, you got to get around the right people. People are, I mean, that's what drives everything, right? Who knows you? Who do you know? I want to do business with you. I like you. Let's do a deal. So getting around the right people, the right network is, to me, the most important determinant of your net worth. That's the way I see it. You
Lost
bet.
you there for a second, but I'm back.
Yes, sir. It said it was still recording.
Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. But anyway, that's the internet. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. I just keep rolling. I can edit.
Yeah, exactly.
um, so the right person at the right time. I definitely can relate to that because about 20 is when the right person showed up for me. I got in trouble like you, pretty bad background, around the wrong people, and someone believed in me. I think a lot of times you need somebody to just believe in you and then tell you something different, because the wrong people are telling you all the wrong things, where a person who believes in you goes, you know what, there is a better way for you. And I started believing in myself. So who was the person, if you don't mind sharing, if that's not your personal, how that affected your life going forward?
I mean, there's tons of them, Clarence. You know that. You're talking about one, but how many have you really had? There's been so many,
Well,
right?
since then, yeah.
But there's the one you remember, or the one that started things off, that changes your perspective. And I actually have a name for that. I call it the law of borrowed belief. And sometimes we hit a ceiling, sometimes we get stuck, sometimes we don't think we're worthy, and we have to be around the right people who believe in us. And so what you did was you borrowed that man's belief in you, and then you lived up to it, and then kept getting better. And that's why I go back to the network, and the net worth is being around people who uplift you. Because a lot of people will bring you down. Oh, who do you think you are? Why do you think, oh, you big time now, and all that stuff. I got all of that from my family. Like, oh, you think you're a big time now? Yeah. Okay. So not hanging out with you anymore, but that's a story for a different day. But yeah, I mean, you got to get around the right people who believe in you, and you have to borrow that belief. And so for me, I've had it many times over and over again. And even the reason that we're speaking right now is because I was in a mastermind. I was doing some real estate training company at that time. So showing real estate agents how to get listings, get seller appointments, all that stuff, referrals, buyers. That was a business. And in that mastermind, every so often, like every break, someone would come up to me and say, "Hey, I heard you doing a podcast with so and so. How are you doing that?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's simple. I've been doing this since 2008. It's just this, and that." And it was my wife who's like, "Hey, maybe I call her Cupcake. Maybe you should be doing the podcasting as the business." And I'm like, "What? No, who's going to pay for that and all that?" And she's like, "I don't know. Maybe you should think about that." And so this is not just this is a combination of right words, right person, right time, and borrow belief, because she believed that we could do the podcast thing as a business. And I'm like, who's going to pay for that? And now we live a beautiful lifestyle because of the business. And I didn't believe in it at the time, but she did. And so I borrowed her belief, and here we are.
Nice. Hey, you were in the real estate space for a while, huh? Do you still do real estate, or is that just a step in the direction where you're going?
We still hold rentals. We still have some rentals, and we are looking right now to acquire some more single family, because a couple of years back we liquidated what we had because the market looked like it couldn't go up anymore. And now we're looking to buy back in.
Yeah, well, the market is, boy, the market is all, the housing is always improving. It's just with the rates and other people who control and stuff
Yeah.
are doing and mess with that.
Yeah.
um, You got a lot of catchy things that I really love. Talk about working dumber, not smarter. It's like you're the anti what we're taught, which is awesome because it's going to make people want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing, man. We've all heard it, and I'm just gonna call BS on it. It is at work smarter, not harder type of thing. And everybody's always telling us to work smarter, not harder. And I believed it. And I did my darndest for many, many years to work smarter. And what I realized was working smart was holding me back. And the reason why is because I thought that I could do everything better than everybody else. So what did I end up doing? Everything. And that held me back, kept me stuck. And I had a realization. I had a mentor actually put the idea in my head to hire people smarter than me to do things. And in the beginning, when I first started business, my fragile little ego might not be able to handle someone smarter working for me. Now it humors me that I could pay money and have people smarter than me working for me. It's funny to me. I'm like, what? I can afford this? It's crazy. And so what I like to do is I like to find people who are smarter than me at things, better writer, better strategist, better podcaster, and hire them. Hire them. And maybe I learn from them, maybe I don't. Preferably I don't. Preferably they do their thing and I can just be dumb and continue doing my thing.
That's so true, man. In business, I think when you own something that's your baby, you don't want to let anything go. You feel like if you leverage your stuff to someone else, it's going to ruin it and it's going to mess your name up. And that was a big growth thing for me, is to allow other people to do things. You know, I was always worried about, no, if I have to do it this way. If I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And that is a big game changer. And boy, does it take a lot off your plate, you know. I just think that's awesome that you're saying that, because that has been a big shift in my business over the years. And it took me a long time. It lost me a lot of money. And it's definitely something that I think other business owners would take to doing that and learning from that. That's just a crazy thing. So moving along here. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, have you noticed a pushback from people who were in other forms of media, such as like TV, radio, even satellite, pushing back on podcasts? Like, I'll give you an example. It's almost like everything that's evolved in business. Like years ago, there was the 8-track, and then it was the cassette, and then it was the CD. Now it's streaming. It seems like every generation pushes back on the new thing. What type of pushback have you experienced, if any at all? Maybe you haven't. Because I've had like a lot of DJs that have come on their show and they talk down like podcasting is something less than, I'm a radio DJ and you're a podcaster. It's like, we're just talking on two different mediums. What's the difference, you know?
Yeah, man, it's funny how people look at that. But to put things into perspective, I did my first podcast in 2008. So that was a minute ago. All right. Dating myself just a little bit. But the thing was, back then it was hard to get. Back then it was much harder to get. You had to plug in and download, and you had to manage files and stupid stuff like that we no longer have to do. Now this stuff just shows up in your car and you play it. And
Right.
so, yeah, at the beginning, the pushback was a technological thing. But now you look at Edison's share of ear report, and I think 75% of Americans are listening to podcasts. It's crazy. And so if 75% of Americans are listening to podcasts, is it not legit? Right? Ask these DJs, is it not legit that you guys, Africa Bambaataa was doing house parties in the Bronx and you guys were doing that thing over there and nobody knew about it? It just became mainstream till Run DMC, Aerosmith, all this stuff happened. And now it's in everybody's lexicon. Well, that's happening now in podcasting. You hear it in the media everywhere. All the news channels are using it. It's a common word that people didn't know 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they're giving pushback, but I don't care.
Yeah, it's funny how things change. You say it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Explain that.
Yeah, I mean, it's two sides of the same coin. The way I look at it is not, I mean, you got to know people, right? You got to know the right people to get in the right doors, the right places, get the right opportunities. But more importantly, even if you know those people, they have to know you. They have to know your reputation. They have to know what you're about in order to give you those opportunities. And I look at it as breathing. It's inhale and exhale, right? We need both of them. So you need people to know you and the other way around.
When you say know people to know you, are you talking about the audience or the people who can have those important conversations with you? Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, that's it. Who's gonna open the door for you? It's somebody who knows you, right? If they don't know you, don't know you exist, don't even know you're out there, then no door shall be opened, sir.
Right. um, you have on the website, when you go to your website, there is a download. I can't remember the title, but it's something about mistakes not to make when you start your first podcast. What would you say to a person who's thinking about, hey, I'm gonna do a podcast? Because most of my buddies and my friends are people who see me do this, and I'm not as deep as you are. I'm only on episode maybe 173, so I'm kind of a baby compared to you. I'm in the rookies. But what do you say to them? Because a lot of my friends will do it, and they think it's just easy. Oh, I could just sit around and talk about stuff, and it's a commitment. You know, most of them just think, oh, I'll just start talking, and people listen. It doesn't work that way. So, what would you say to somebody who's new and is thinking about taking on this task?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Run the other way.
Right.
Run the other way. I mean, it's hard, right? Because for me, the only people that I work with are business people who have a business that is working and they want to add a podcast. And I think that a lot of people get into the idea of podcasting as a business. And I don't really understand that model. That's not where I come from. I don't know how to build a big Joe Rogan size audience and get sponsor dollars. So I don't look at a podcast as a business. I look at it as something that will feed a healthy business, right? So that's what I would say. Now, if you have a hobby, a passion, and I can tell you that right now I'm doing one. I'm doing one with a buddy about spirituality, about faith, and all that, and we're just doing it for fun. So we don't tie any emotion to it other than this is helping us learn. And if that's something that you're okay with as a hobby doing it, then that might be great. But we don't do any editing. We don't do anything. It's one shot and done. If you start getting into editing, post-production, marketing, and all that stuff, you could quickly get burnt out. And that's why successful business owners hire us, is because they just want to add the podcast machine to what they're doing without having to actually learn or do any of that. They want to work dumber.
Smart. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, because me, I started when I first started, it was a conversation and I was on a really big network, and I started going, I could do this, I could figure this out. And I did. That's just how I'm wired. I said, I'm gonna edit this stuff, I'm gonna figure it out. And now I pretty much do all that. I have some other people who will do show notes and other stuff like that, learning that headache, because sitting up in the middle of the night going, what the heck are we talking about? How does it make it interesting? You know, you could say, oh, I remember what we talked about, but how do you get it to grab people? So that's for the part like you, I said, you do that. That's what you're really good at. You know, I'll get the people to open up and tell me crazy stories. You just do that part. And it is work. I like the concept that you talk about where you have a business and you want to leverage that through your podcast, letting people know about. I think a lot of people do this when they have a business thinking it's going to get me more people to my business. You know, like my idea, I do online coaching and mortgages. I thought, and I made this mistake as well. I thought, well, if I just start doing my podcast, I'll meet a lot of different people. They'll hear me and they'll all come in. But it doesn't work that way. It has to be the way you describe it. Is it? You have a business. How does this, help your business do the things you want to do? And I never approached it that way. It was just, I'm just going to get on here and start talking. Now, granted, I've been successful in getting business out of it, but again, you got to put the time in. So I think that's really interesting that you say that, because a lot of people, like I said earlier, just get on to go, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to go talk and have my friends on. And I've had my friends on, thank God they were funny people, but that's still not the best business strategy at all, Walk me through briefly, if you guys decide to work with a podcast, what are some of the services you offer? Do they just say, like, let's say I recorded this and we were done, and I say, all right, Jay, I'm gonna send you this, and then you guys, what do you guys do with that tape that's sent to you? God, I dated myself. I said tape. that. What do you do with that recording?
We reject it because we're not interested in that. That's the bottom line. It's like, I'm not really interested in because anybody, like I said, any dummy with a smartphone can start a podcast. So if it's just that piece of it, I'm not really interested in it. What I'm interested is in the mission. What's the mission? Who are the people that you're trying to help? Can I get behind this mission? And if I can, then we start looking at intention. And this is one of the things that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And if you can't answer this, you shouldn't have a podcast. I ask them simply, what do you want the podcast to do for you? And if you tell me like, oh, I'm giving back to my community and I'm doing good things, I'm like, you're a beautiful person. Peace be with you. I can't help you with it. That's great. But if I have this coaching and I'm helping men be better fathers and husbands, and I need to get more people to my masterminds, well, okay, now let's look at how we fit the podcast into your sales cycle, how we get emails going to make those sales easier, what we do with sales calls, like the whole structure. So I'm looking for somebody that actually wants an asset. I'm not looking for somebody that wants a podcast, somebody that wants a business asset that we can tweak and tune and make, give them an ROI for years. And that's why it's hard for me to, hey, you want to be Joe Rogan? Great. Can't help you. But hey, you want to sell more retreats and you're helping these kinds of people. Okay, here are the pieces that we need to do that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense. That's a great explanation. Again, people, like anything they set out to do, it's a business. I think even doing a podcast is a business, for me at least. I don't just get on here. I think about the guests. I read their information. I'm not just picking people. There are people I thought didn't fit for my audience. So I said, no, nothing personal. Just, that's not something we're talking about. So, I stay away from certain things. Other people, those are great for ratings and getting people pissed off. Go ahead. It's not what we're doing over here. One of the things that I noticed on your information is you talk a lot about stop waiting for the right time. I say that to my clients that I coach because, you have the person next week or as soon as this happens, I'm going to do this. And as soon as this takes place, I'm going to do this. And as soon as I cut this off, and there is this belief out there that there's this perfect time to start something. And I like to tell people the best time to start is when you're hot with an idea. Take a step, write down what you're going to do, set up how it works. And then from those steps, you can start taking data and figuring out how you can make it smoother, how you can make it better. Explain what that means to you when you say, stop waiting for the right time.
It's simple, man. There is no right time. The time is right now. Just like you said, when you're motivated, when you're inspired, when you got that gut feeling, that's the time to say, hey, I'm going to take the first step towards whatever this is that I want. And I think too many people are waiting around for the right time and missing opportunity. It's something, and I had this conversation with my buddy on the podcast that I'm doing with him. Committed Conscious Collective, I think is what it's called, with Ray. But he said that there was levels of commitment. And I'm like, isn't there just one commitment? You commit to do something and that's it. But he was reading some study or some report that people had different levels of commitment. And to me, it's, hey, I'm doing this and it's done, right? It's done. And even if it hurts, even if it's uncomfortable, I want that over there. So I got to do this right here. So I'm committed. I'm locked in. And I think that's where people are missing out. People are living quiet lives of desperation, not changing because they're waiting for the right time. And so, again, there is no right time. The time is right now.
Well, I would agree that there are levels of commitment. If you're in my line of work, you see that right away. There's levels of, this is what I say I want. And then when the work starts to happen, you see their level of commitment to that work that they want is not the same.
They're not committed. That's it. It's not whether they are or not. There's no levels. They either are or they aren't. You want to be 40. Look, I'm 46 years old, 9.5% body fat, work out I only lift weights 3 days a week, but I've been committed the last 1,000 days to never miss a workout, right? That's committed.
I would
Why?
say it's a good
I
commitment.
want, yeah, I want what's on the other side of that. Look good, feel good.
Yeah. I think people also too, I call it sexy talk or pillow talk. It's a lot easier to say, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do than to actually do it. The do is the work, you know. So I think people say things because it sounds good, you know. One thing about me, which why
Absolutely.
I've had success with my coaching, is I'm just real with people, and I'll tell them, "You're not serious about this," and they think because they're paying you that. Listen, I don't want to be around people who aren't getting results because that's going to eventually start to reflect on me. So that's when I say, have that conversation. Listen, I'm not the guy for you. Apparently, I don't get you. You know, maybe there's somebody else who will hear what you have to say and they can teach you a better way of doing it. But what I'm getting is you're not ready. And
Yeah.
if you're not ready, it's a waste of my time. And even though you're paying me, and that's nice, I'm actually losing money long term because people are going to start to say, what's up with this guy? You know, so that's sometimes a tough conversation to have, but sometimes you have to have it. So
Sure.
tell me, JR, why is it better to receive than give?
That's one of those things that twist people's mind. And it's been said, how do they say it? I'm going to get backwards. It's better to give than receive. And I think that's one of those like scarcity mindsets, poverty mindset. It's better to give than to have. So I should never have. And the way I look at it, when I'm reading the Bible, I think God wants us to have. I think he wants us to have plenty, and he wants us to have plenty so that we can give. And so I flipped it, and I think it's better to receive because you're doing good work, you're doing worthy work, you're doing things that matter, changing lives. And when you receive, now you have abundance to give, right? Receive, then THEN, give. And that's the way that it's supposed to be. We're supposed to give our first fruits to the church. Yeah, I can't do that if I don't have anything. And so that I find that to be a cop out most people use. Instead, it's more like that pillow talk. It sounds nice, but are you really doing it?
Exactly. Exactly. What is your vision, if I could use that word, for Podcast Factory?
Oh, that's
Future.
simple, man. It's simple. I I I mean, I hired consultants to help me come up with this, and I paid them a pretty penny, but I like it because it scares me. And
It
the
doesn't
idea is,
scare you, man. It ain't worth it. If you're like, oh, this is a cakewalk, you better get a refund on those consultants.
that's true. I want to be changing 10 million lives a year. And I know
Wow.
that I'm not nuts. I don't think I can do that myself. Remember, I said, I don't know this Joe Rogan thing. I don't think I can do that, have that audience. But I do know that through the people that I'm helping, through the experts I'm working with, people with a message, a mission that can change lives, that we can do it together. And so even right now, man, last time we checked, we were at 6 million downloads. I mean, that's the whole time that we've been doing this with our hosts, but then it seems like it's not too far of a stretch in the future to be able to do 10 million lives a year, changing people's perspectives, giving them the right words from the right person at the right time, and getting rewarded for that.
Yeah. It's not, I think there's in our society, because of the way certain people who have more behave, people think that if you're receiving, I like that term, receiving from your fruits, I think some people think that that's bad. So people say, "Oh, money's evil. Or getting this is evil," because they're looking at people who have a lot, who behave a certain way, and you're supposed to go to work and benefit from the fruits of your labor. So it shouldn't be something that you have to hang your head out because I'm making a little money and people are paying me. But there is that perception. You know, I remember growing up, we used to look at certain people who had a lot of money, and the way culturally some people are raised, you think, man, there's something wrong with these people. They behave a certain, but it was really their behavior versus what the money could do for you, you know? So
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with being paid well for what you do. If you're doing a good job, you should get paid for it. That's as simple as it comes, you know?
It's easy too, because this is one of the conversations I have with Cupcake is like, I sometimes will spend money. Like we went out to the art museum the other day, and there was this silly little statue there, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm dropping some money on that. And she's like, man, you never feel bad about spending money, and I'm like, I don't. Why? Here's the list of all the people we're giving to. We give this much. You give how much? We give how much to the church each month? I'm like, I don't feel any guilt at all. All of them are taken care of. If there's something left over for me and I want to have fun, then I'm okay with that.
I love it. uh, let me ask you this kind of, I would say, quasi personal, but how being married and tied into that relationship, how's that affected your business positively? Now, it seems like a strange question, but I've asked a lot of guys. There are guys who were I've known for years, and they were single, and then they met that one woman, and their life just shifted. Was that way for you, or did you two just meet each other and fall in love, and it just kind of worked up to this point?
No, we've gone through, we've been together about 20 years now.
Okay, you got some significant
So
time.
we've done a lot of growth. Yeah. Yeah. We've done a lot of growth together, but she and I work together in our businesses. And so we're each other's partner in everything. And for us, it has been great because when she worked in corporate America and they were just sucking the life out of her, and she'd come home and complain nonstop and have bags under her eyes and be stressed out, she wasn't happy, and I couldn't help. I couldn't relate. Remember, we talked about me. I do as little as possible. I'm unemployed. So I don't get it. I don't know what that is. But when she joined me and the company, now we're working together on the same things, and we're working together as a team, and we have our own roles. And look, it wasn't easy. We tried before when we were very young and it didn't work, but we came back again. And I think since 2016, we've been working together in several businesses and built a couple companies together. And it's the most beautiful, most rewarding thing, because for us, who has your back? Remember, we talked about that ego thing, right? And being that entrepreneur, and anything I can do, you can do better, and holding it down because it's yours. There's only one other person that has that feeling, and it's my wife, and she will hold it down because it is ours. And so her and I are always working together to make things happen. And so it's made our relationship stronger. Not only that, but this year we're homeschooling our son. And so now all three of us are together all the time.
That's
And
beautiful, man.
it's been the most rewarding time of my life. I've never been happier than right now. And a lot of that has to do with my faith. A lot of that has to do in the growth of my family in faith. And a lot of that is thanks to God.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's awesome. Especially in this day and time, to be able to control that environment and make sure you're controlling the messaging that your son's getting. That's super important.
Programming.
Do you see getting into the business? Is that a future goal, or are you gonna let him find his own path?
He's part of the business now. He's on the payroll.
Oh, is that okay? How old is he? You said you were homeschooling.
9. He's 9.
Okay. What does he do? He's probably good at editing. Kids are good at that stuff.
He's he models and does videos and stuff like that. Helps me post on social. But yeah, it's up to him. The main thing that I have set for him, and this goes against what my father-in-law wants me to do. He wants me to pick his career and his path, and I don't think so. Just not going to do it. But I do help him in obviously his faith and loving God and loving his neighbor. But the other thing is, hey, solve problems and create. Right, solve problems. Look for a problem. Create a solution. And that's what I teach him every day: is find a problem to solve, fix that problem. You get paid for that. So whether he wants to make stuff like we do with media, or he wants to make other stuff or do something, as long as he is following God's word, doing good things and finding problems and fixing them, getting paid, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I love that. I love that. All right, so Jared, where can people find you? They want to find out more about your philosophy and see if they're a good fit for your podcast factory. How do they find you?
I think the thing is, we talked about elevating your environment, getting around better people, getting around better thinking. And that's why you're listening to us today. So thank you for that. And if you want to continue that journey, thepodcastfactory.com/client showcase. There'll be a tab up at the top of the site, client showcase. You can find 80, 100 different hosts with positive messages, uplifting messages, new perspective to be your buddy. You just go and play some podcasts and learn. The other thing is that if you're a business owner with a message and a mission and you need to get into the ears of more people, I might be able to help. Same thing, Podcast Factory, thepodcastfactory.com/call. Book a call, we can talk.
I love it. All right. I love it.